Okay everybody, thanks for stopping by. Today's video we're going to be having a look at the little Bluetti EB3A solar generator, solar power bank, similar to the other unit that we looked at just a few weeks ago. Today's video is going to be focused on the EB3A though. In upcoming videos we'll do a few comparisons, put them side by side and do a bit more solar testing. Now, while I'm here and doing the introduction, I just want to quickly let you know that currently Bluetti, now the date currently is the 23rd of November 2022. Now currently Bluetti has some Black Friday sales on the Australia Bluetti website, so I'm going to put a link down in the description. These are generally retail around about the $620, $630 mark. If you jump online as part of the Black Friday sales, you can pick one of these up for $499 currently, and of course they've got combo deals and stuff across the website, so there you go. Anyway, let's get into this review. We're a little bit sick today, so apologies in advance. We're outside, we're in the sun, I'm wearing a jacket, I don't know whether I'm hot or cold. You're going to see a heap of reviews of these online. These have been sent out to so many people I don't know, and they've been popular as with people purchasing them as well. Bluetti's been making great steps forward, not only in, I guess, keeping up with the Joneses. Everybody knows that there's a heap of other players in the market for these. Bluetti's been a name that's been there for quite a while now, and they've continued to, I guess, progress with the rest of the market and keep up. Specifically, what makes this so interesting is the technology or the battery chemistry that's in this. Now this is a LiPo 4 battery. Now rather than your standard LiPo batteries, these are a little bit safer to charge, discharge, storing in your house, in your car, wherever you might want to use it. Now with the previous units we've looked at, they've been the standard LiPo chemistry, and they typically run around 500 cycles before they'll drop to that 80%. Still completely usable, similar to your phone. You've had your phone for 12 months, 18 months, whatever. Just after a little while, you just start to notice that that charge just doesn't hold quite as long. It's not topping up, you're not getting the full day out. Similar to this sort of thing, but with these, instead of 500 cycles, 2400 cycles. And your little Bluetti turns up, it's gonna arrive double boxed actually, and I was quite impressed with that. Now once you crack into that first box, you're going to be looking at this guy. A little bit of labelling, just a standard brown paper box. May be recycled, it's got that look and feel of a recycled box on it. I'm not sure. I think Bluetti might be having a bit of a crack here, which is nice to see. The reason I say that is inside the box, in addition to some of your standard phone packaging, the main 240 volt cord that gets supplied with the unit, one of these jobbies, was wrapped in this little brown paper bag, box, whatever you want to call it. And I'm thinking, alright, okay, they're starting to have a go. They're seeing the light, heading in the right direction. So nice work, Bluetti. We keep working in that direction and get rid of this sort of stuff. That'd be big props. So in the box, in addition to the little EB3A, you get a 240 volt power cord, which allows you to plug the unit directly into your 240 volt wall socket. There's no brick required anymore at this stage for this little guy. Also supply a cable for your solar charging. Now I didn't get that when I got the EB150 over the back here. I have to say I was a little bit disappointed back then, because the real benefit of these guys have been able to charge them up by solar. If you want the car charging cable, you'll need to pump for that one yourself. I think they're around about 20 bucks on the website. Again, put it up on the screen. That one disappointed me a little bit, only because I've had another unit recently that supplied all three cables. Unfortunately, Bluetti doesn't supply the car charging cable. Now, the reason I say I'm a bit disappointed in that is one of my main case usages. Now this came out with me on some four-wheel drive trips the other week, and I've got to tell you, it saved my butt. And in a bit of an unusual way. When I first chucked it in for testing purposes, it turned up the week before and I had it away for the testing, and I had it away for the four-wheel drive trip. I literally just grabbed a cardboard box, a big cardboard box, threw all my GoPros in it, my cameras, all that sort of stuff, and threw this in the bottom and just plugged everything into it. Basically this just stayed in the box charging all my gear for that weekend. Where I did run into a challenge, and this was very early on, was that because I'm in between wiring some stuff up in the car, as I always am, I had need for another cigarette lighter socket over the front. Now I did have a double adapter, but the double adapter decided it didn't want to work on the day, as it does. I was going to have to choose either have my CB UHF radio to communicate with everybody, or have my dash cam, which was recording footage front and back. And as you know, I do a YouTube channel. What I was able to do was just to move this onto the floor of the Pajero, plug the UHF into the SIGGI socket here at the front, and just left it running for the weekend. So I apologise for this one. I'm dying here. We've got to get this done. So this set out for the weekend, and in addition to doing its duties that I expected of it, charging up all those batteries on the go, it also managed to run my UHF radio for the weekend as well. And because we're forward driving, this thing got bounced around everywhere in the front and back of the car, and I'm happy to report, come out without a scratch and is still working 100%. That has pretty much been the majority of my testing, which is literally throwing this into the back of a car, driving around, using it, having it charge up things while I'm driving around, and it's getting bounced around, and I'm getting bounced around as well. You can see some of the footage there. If you're in the market and you're looking at picking one of these up, the standout key points for this one are the chemistry. That being said, you've probably got lipo chemistry sitting in your phone, sitting beside your bed anyway. Now for its size, 268 watt hours, I think Bluetti have now taken the lead, I think, for fastest charging unit, sort of in this size. This one topped up in under an hour by plugging it into the wall socket, and it takes up to around about 350 watts, I think it was. And the other standout is the wireless charger here on top. Some of the others don't. The unit does fall down slightly as they don't have a fast charge socket here on the front, USB-A. Sometimes people want to fast charge their phones and stuff, so you're stuck with your standard USB 5 volt 3 watters on the front, so about 15 watts, which will still get your phone charged, no problem. It's just not going to be the fast charge. Do have a power delivery port here on the front, which is USB-C 100 watt, anything up to around about 20 volts, I think that at 5 amps. Standard affair, which seems to be popping up all the units, and of course you've got one of these lights on the front, which I think, again, standard affair on all the units. This might be a silly thing, and I think that's the thing that I probably like the most about it, is that whilst it has a 600 watt inverter on the front, we can plug our heat gun and we're going to try the kettle in a minute. They've only put one socket on the front. Probably not going to be wanting to put things into this is going to be pulling that 600 watts. You're going to run through this in around about 20 minutes, less than half an hour, if you try and pull 600 watts from this inverter. It'll do it, but you're only getting half an hour. So I think just going to a single socket on the front makes the unit look nicer, and I think it just makes sense. You're charging your phones, charging your drones, charging your camera batteries, running your UHF for the weekend, your little 18 volt batteries, 36 volt batteries. Grab your charger, have a look at what the wattage rating is on the back. And providing it's under that 600 watts, you can plug them into this and then charge them up. So here we are in the shade with a little Bluetti. We've got our 200 watt solar panel sitting out there. And I've got to tell you, one of the best investments I've ever made in relation to solar and these folding solar blankets are those extension leads. I'll find a link, I'll put it down in the description, you can have a look. But I think there's around about 5 meters worth of extension cord. I want to say it might have cost me about 60 bucks or something like that. But I've got to tell you, for testing purposes and just being parked at camp and being able to throw your solar panels out over there and whatever it is you're charging in the shade, just like this, absolutely ideal. Highly recommend it. We've just figured out how the powerlifting thing works on here, because I've got to tell you it wasn't really clear. The inverter itself has a surge of 1200 watts. It doesn't tell you how long. I would be guesstimating somewhere between 10 and possibly 30 seconds. You could probably run that at that before we're going to shut down and go into overload. That 1200 watts is also important because when you switch your powerlifting on, what that'll allow this little unit to do is run up to 1200 watts. So if we had a kettle that was a 1200 watt kettle, if you plug that into the unit without having powerlifting on, it'll probably run for about 30 seconds and then go into overload, shut itself off. If you plugged it into any other inverter, that's what it would do. 1200 watts, spike for that surge time, whatever it was, shut itself off. What it would allow the kettle to do is to run. It wouldn't go into overload, so we're talking 600 to 1200 watt range. It would allow this to power that unit without going into overload. What it would do is simply drop the current, drop the voltage output to the socket. So the kettle would only be getting 120 volts, 150 volts, something along those lines. up to the maximum of the 600 watts, it just wouldn't go into overload. Now again, with this technology, regardless of whose unit you're using, don't use that on electronics that have microchips and computers and stuff in them, like air cons and stuff like that. You really only want to be using it on things with heating coils. So resistive units, we're talking kettles, heat guns, soldering irons, stuff like that. That's where you can operate between that 6 and 1200 watts safely with this unit with powerlifting on. With powerlifting off, limit yourself to under that 600 watts. The other thing that's really important about this thing is it's got UPS in it, uninterruptible power supply. So plugged into the 240 volt socket, so plugged into your wall socket at home, if your power cuts out, whatever you have plugged into this will continue to run for the duration of this battery. So for me, where that value is going to be is in my large fish tank in the main room, where I've got a heap of fish and they're breeding, and I've got shrimp and all sorts of stuff going in there. If that went out for a period of time and didn't have the air or the filter running on it, the light is neither here or there, but mainly the air running on that, I could end up with a whole bunch of dead fish. None of them particularly expensive, but they're my pets, and like my little dog down here, I like to look after my pets. So if it went out, I'd be in trouble. This is going to get its job being plugged into my main tank in that room, and it's just going to give me backup. So obviously when power comes on, it switches it back on, goes back through to the fish tank. But this is another big feature on this unit, is the UPS functionality. So have it plugged into your 240 or your AC socket, and when you lose power there, this will pick up the duties for as long as that battery lasts, and then once your power comes back on, power will be supplied back to the unit, and your battery will top back up, and then obviously everything will be passed back through to whatever it is you've got connected up to it. I just need to mention that I didn't get around to testing, but I need to put it in because I think it's important. This unit can actually accept charge from multiple sources at the same time. So in addition to having it plugged into our 240, I can have this charging from solar as well. I'll put the details up on the description as to how much you can be pumping into this at the one time. But again, realistically, 268 watt hour battery, you don't really need to be pumping it that quick, but you can. And this is literally just plugged into the AC socket. We're getting 340 watts coming in. We're basically at 0%, so I had flattened this down. It's going to take us 0.7 of an hour or 42 minutes to get this to a full charge. And I've got to tell you, this is a really nice looking little app. Now literally anything that shows on the screen, as you can see there, 331 watts, 7%, 331 watts coming in, 7% up the top here, and 0 watts out. So everything that you see on that screen is going to be replicated here. So ultimately, as handy as having apps are, I think they're really just mainly for changing the settings. It looks wonderful, like it looks absolutely fantastic. I really like the way this looks. But ultimately, if I want to change, turn the DC on, turn the DC off, turn the light on or off like that, I'm going to do it through the main face. The only things that I'm probably going to be using the app for is when you go into the settings and you've got the option of the eco shutdown. Now that's just how long it's going to stay on without a load. Charging mode, you can see here it's got charging mode. It's currently set to turbo, so that'll go up to that 350 watts. You've got 3 options, standard, turbo and silent. Just to give you an idea between silent and turbo. So that's silent mode. Now we've been running a little bit on turbo, so I was going to give you a quick listen to those fans so you can hear the difference. So again, not terrible from the other side of the room. They do sound a little bit more urgent on the turbo mode. You can hear they're obviously cycling probably about twice the speed that they were when they were on the silent mode. Okay, so we're back out in the backyard again in the solar testing arena and weed propagation farm apparently lately. I wanted to have a bit more of a play with the little Bluetti before I put up the review, just to see if I can get a little bit closer to that 200 watts of limit of solar. Now, I have tried a number of different scenarios, just running into that 8.5 amp limit again. So here's our solar panels. 8.5. So I'm a little bit disappointed that we're not getting anywhere near the 200 watts that this thing is capable of solar input. Again, it's just because of the hard limits they've got it. That 8.5 amps is a killer, because we're going to be putting quite a few more amps in from those solar panels. And the 12 to 28 volts on the input on the solar is a killer as well. It's good because it'll go nice and low, down to 12 volts, so it's going to continue charging even into almost the lowest of lights, but you're pretty much restricted to just having one panel on its own, in that if you connect any of them in series, you're straight away over that 28 volts. So all of the advised limits that are printed all over the front suggest that all of those are hard limits and should be respected. All the test gear aside, what I actually want to do is just give you a really quick look at the size of the unit itself and then give you an idea of what's inside the unit. This is something I like to do with these because I think it really gives you an idea of what you're getting for your dollars, other than just a plastic brick with a battery in it. Just want to give you an idea of what else is in there. So there's our Bluetti, there's our 600 watt inverter, there's our solar controller, there's a little 8 amp hour lithium battery, and then of course we've got our power brick in there as well. So all packed in that, you've got everything that you see here. Of course you've got your SIGGI sockets, USB sockets, all your protections, one of these silly little lights that they like to throw in, fans, and a wireless charger on top. What more could you ask for, really? That's been the EB3A from Bluetti. We'll get back and we'll do some more testing on this a little bit later on when I just have more time. So that is it. Titan and I, thank you for watching the video. It hasn't been as detailed or as long as I would normally make it. I've cut a heap of stuff out of this video. I promise we will come back and we'll revisit this unit. If you've got any questions, stick them down below. In the meantime, thanks very much for stopping by. Appreciate your views, appreciate your subscriptions. Nice to see you all again, and we'll catch ya on the next one. Cheers.